America's the greatest country in the world. Welcome to our special Campus Collapse. The question is, should you send your kids to college? The pro-Hamas protests on college campuses across the country have been another glaring sign that, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't spend $90,000 a year to send my kids to this place on purpose. Maybe that's not a great use of time or money. I should say here that I went to Yale, so that's my credibility on this issue as I lived it from the inside. I was the token conservative on campus. There were a few of us, but things were not as crazy then as they are now. And now we graduated in 2007. On my radio show, someone called in and they needed some advice, and it came from a really genuine place. He and his family were deciding if their high school senior son should go to college for marine biology or go to welding school. And we ended up talking about this for like 3 days on the radio. People called in, got a ton of emails, and it was great. A really good question. And the dad called back in and said, Slater, my son has a passion for the ocean. So I'll spare you the whole thought process of it all. But the best conclusion, I think, came from my brother-in-law with the thickest country accent. I can't simulate it. He said, here's what you got to do. Go to welding school, become a welder. Work your brains out for 6 years and become a master welder. And I work 100-hour weeks, travel the world welding. Then you own your own welding shop, and then you get other people to weld for you, and the money starts pouring in, and then you go study the ocean all day long. You could become a regular Jacques Cousteau all on your own because you're a master welder. I think there's Jacques. I think you could weld your own submarine. I think that's the plan. Some people said, you could become an underwater welder. It's pretty good too. But I think that's the right play. You go to welding school first. For a long time, the argument was go to college, and then, if you want, you can always become a welder. I think the right play is don't go to college, do the welding, and if you want to study history, just read a book and get a lot of money in the meantime. Save a lot of money for not giving it to these universities. But it's more than saving money. You may also save your soul. Colleges have become very different than what they were, not even that long ago, but certainly what they were a long time ago. So now, you're paying up to $90K a year for a place that's not just useless, but in many cases wicked and bad, and not a place you should drop your daughters off or your sons. Colleges went from a good thing then to a pretty useless thing, but whatever, it's $100 a semester, then to a useless and expensive thing, and now they're a bad thing. I know that maybe sounds dramatic, right? I can't tell you the emails I got from listeners on the radio show, which, by the way, is simulcast here on the First TV every weekday from 7 to 9 in the morning. And I got one guy sent me an email. He has 2 nieces, 2 nephews. The nephews went to Clemson and Virginia Tech. The nieces went to Cornell and Columbia. And they came back totally different. He said he came back, Black Lives Matter, all this woke nonsense out at the wazoo. Got an email from one mom, sent her son to Duke. One of our guests, we were coming up, went to Duke. And he met a girl. They both went to get their doctorates at Columbia and Cornell. And now they think their family's a bunch of racist, homophobic, misogynistic, transphobic, right? All the words, right? I got flooded with emails like that. It is risky to send your kids to college. And that could be true even at the Clemsons or whatever. I mean, they had all these other schools, West Virginia, Virginia Tech, they all had pro-Palestine rallies. Nothing like a Columbia, but it's all still there. And we drop our kids off there on purpose. The USC, University of Southern California commencement speaker, there was a whole controversy with her. They canceled her or whatever. The whole thing, it doesn't matter. But the valedictorian, she was a biochemical engineering major, and she minored in resistance to genocide. I thought that was a joke. I thought that was just she spends a lot of her time protesting, huh? Kind of like, you majored in history and minored in beer pong. I thought it was a joke, but it was a real thing. It's a real minor. You can minor in resistance to genocide. And there's all these people how could this have ever happened on college campuses? What's going on? I don't know. You can literally study it. Like they teach it. So school for a long time was good. Started off as seminaries. And then it became a joke. 13th grade. Adult daycare. There was a school near where I grew up, Hobart, and called it Camp Ho-Ho. They did a survey. This was back in the day, 2003. It's worse now. These are full-time college students. It's what they do their day-to-day, daily life. And they calculated in-class instruction. In-class is 1.2 hours a day, and then homework and other educational activities is 1.6 hours. So we'll round up 3 hours a day of school for a full-time college student. That's just like the bare minimum necessary to even keep the pretense of drinking camp alive. You know what I mean? Like how little actual school do we need to do here to keep up the ruse that this is really just a giant drinking orgy before and after the football game? You know what I mean? Like, can we do 2 hours of school a day? No, we can do 3. Okay, we'll do 2. We'll see if we can get away with 2 hours of school. Oh, what a joke. Fun. Oh, don't get me wrong. Super, super fun. College is super fun. But it's not school. Now, I always get an email from some mom. My daughter's a pre-med major. Okay, there are some, maybe 10% of the campus is going for school. The other 90% is there because, I don't know, well, it's fun. It's Chuck E. Cheese with booze. I don't know, you get to party all the time. And maybe that was okay for a while, but now it's not just that. Now it's expensive for that, but now it's even worse because your kids may come back very different people than you've raised them for 18 years. If you value learning and becoming a better person, it's harder to find these days. I don't know much about this school. I have a buddy who went there. It's a school in Annapolis. It's called St. John's College. It's a real classical school. They read the great books. Their marketing picture, it's not of the cool new dorm rooms or the, with the lazy river or partying at the quad or the sorority girls at University of Alabama, glamming their dorm, whatever. Or the student section of the football game. Which, by the way, I love all those things. But this is their marketing picture right here. That's just a stack of the books you read. Those are the classics. The reading list. You want to read those? You want to talk about it with other people who want to read those? You want to learn about it from professors who spend their life reading those? You go to that school. You want to go to football games? I don't know, Penn State's a great place for that. Or Michigan. You go to Michigan, it'd be great. It'd be awesome to go to the big house. I've never been, but that seems great. I feel bad for the parents who have to make that decision, or I should say who have had to make the decision the last 8 years or so. Because, should I send my kids to college now? Because it's I want them to be successful. But now it's becoming more and more obvious that that's just not necessarily true. And maybe a bad thing to send your kids to these places. I'm hoping that in the next 10 years, by the time my oldest son is 17 and thinking about college or welding school, I'm hoping there's more options. I'm hoping there's more St. John's, more Hillsdales out there, more options of what college used to be. And maybe these colleges won't have a sick student section at the football games. But the kids will go and learn, become better people, and still have their soul. And never come home in a Che Guevara t-shirt. Added bonus there too. We'll talk about trade schools coming up next. Talk to someone at a school that still does school the way it's supposed to be. Coming up next, we'll talk to Josh Hammer, who went to Duke, went to Chicago, lived through the craziness, was just there recently and experienced some of the craziness. We'll ask him and all of our guests what that family should do. What would you do if you had a high school senior? Coming up next right here on The First TV. If memory serves, that was at Emory University, and as they're walking her to the police car, handcuffed, she does not use her right to remain silent and said, "All I did was instinctually hit the officer lightly, very lightly on the head. Okay? That's all I did. And I shouldn't get arrested for that. Our friend Josh Hammer is here, host of America on Trial with Josh Hammer, all about the Donald Trump court cases. Duke undergrad, Chicago Law School. Those are the relevant things here. Josh, how are you, sir?
Mike, it's always good to see you, my friend.
Great to talk to you. Let's dump on college for a minute. I was thinking back on all my craziest college woke stories from when I was in college. They're not even they don't even meet the bar anymore. It's just like a normal Tuesday now. They're not even funny anymore. So what were the craziest, wokest, weird things that happened when you were at Duke in Chicago?
I mean, honestly, Mike, it wasn't that bad. I mean, this is the craziest thing, right? I mean, I'm a fairly young guy. I graduated college from Duke in 2011. My college experience felt very normal. I mean, I definitely had professors who you could tell leaned a little bit to the left. But I've been a conservative since I was 12, 13 years old. I mean, it's not like I was a liberal in college and became conservative after college. So I didn't feel like I was discriminated against or anything. Certainly at the University of Chicago for law school, I was there from 2013 to 2016. There was a vibrant and very public and vocal right of center student contingent. I definitely never felt like I was discriminated against as a student there. I mean, look, we had some absolute leftist lunatics who came in to speak during lunch talks when I was in law school. I remember various, egregious pro-abortion talks. I was one of the founders and presidents of the pro-life student group at the University of Chicago Law School. So I remember going to those lunch talks and asking some very charged questions to the pro-abortion fanatics who were coming in to talk. But I was never shouted down or anything. It's really changed, Mike, just over the past 5, 6, 7 years or so. I think it's really been kind of after Donald Trump went down the escalator in the summer of 2015. That is when the left lost its marbles. Now, I did have a terrible experience, not as a student, but as a speaker. I was speaking for YAF, the Young America's Foundation at the University of Michigan this past November on the war in Gaza. I was shouted down for roughly 35 to 40 minutes or so by, I would estimate, probably 25 to 30 pro-Hamas mini jihadi lunatics who threw their hands in the air, were shouting me down like genocide, and the university administrators were standing there on the side, did absolutely nothing. At a public university like Michigan, that is actually a violation of my First Amendment rights. And I wrote that up as a column, and I'm still waiting for an apology from Santa Ono, the president of the University of Michigan. I expect that apology is probably not going to come at this point, Mike. But I've experienced the woke craziness as a campus speaker in recent years. But honestly, when I was a student, Mike, nothing like this.
I know, that's so weird. That was me too. So I graduated in 2007, and it was there weren't many conservatives. There were a few of us. They're mostly the athletes. I kind of stayed separate, but I wrote in the newspaper, conservative columns, and there were wacky professors, but I never felt discriminated against in any profound way. My first editorial I wrote, John Bolton came to campus, and he didn't get shouted down like today, but they were rude. Right? They hissed and jeered. Okay, right? And I was outraged by that. I was like, this is appalling. But it wasn't like what you experienced more recently. So that's really interesting because, well, listen, our schools, they used to probably be conservative, right? And then they went to very few conservatives, but now it's outright hostile, right? Is that the assessment? And what could have happened? And obviously it was a long setup to get to where we are now. But what happened in just the last few years, even since when we were in school?
Yeah, I'm thinking this through in real time, Mike. I mean, here's one anecdote that I can come up with when I was in college, and it really did not even stand down in my mind, so I had to seriously think about it. So there was a right of center political science faculty member at Duke when I was there by the name of Peter Fever. I'm not sure if he still teaches there. He probably does, if I had to guess. But he was involved in kind of Bush administration circles. So when I got to campus 2007, towards the end of the Bush administration, he was there teaching political science. And I do remember that Karl Rove came to campus as a speaker, I think toward the end of my freshman year, so probably spring 2008, if memory serves correctly. And now that I think about it, and again, this didn't even stand out in my mind because it was something of nothing burger, there was a very small group of people holding signs saying war criminal, but it was nothing. I mean, it was a small off to the side handful of miscreants who were making their opinions known. And I honestly didn't even have a huge problem with it. I mean, if that's how you want to spend your Monday evening, I mean, go for it. I mean, no one was prevented from attending the talk or whatever. But from that to what I experienced at the University of Michigan, getting shouted down with university administrators doing absolutely nothing at one of the greatest public schools in the country, University of Michigan, I mean, it happened really, really quickly. And again, my theory here is that it was two events really combined, which is the election of Barack Obama on the one hand, and then the election of Donald Trump. So the election of Barack Obama fundamentally transformed the Democratic Party and by extension, the left in America. What had been prior to Barack Obama, a political party, that is the Democratic Party, primarily focused on bread and butter economic issues from FDR through LBJ, even John F. Kennedy Jr., even the Clinton administration, which actually was moderate to even center right on some economic issues, but they were still primarily focused on the welfare state, on taxation policy. It was a primarily political economy focused political party. Barack Obama changed all of that. Barack Obama fundamentally transformed, to use his own words, he fundamentally transformed the Democrats into a woke identity politics, intersectional woke party of aggrieved interests. That is essentially the modern Democratic coalition, is a coalition of aggrieved interests. And that started to explode out into the open after they got really, really angry that Donald Trump became president. That's why you saw the Women's March in Washington, D.C., where they vandalized and burned stores down literally the day after the presidential inauguration, going back to January 2017. It wasn't a very far leap from that to the Black Lives Matter protests of 2020. And now the flavor of the day seems to be Hamas and jihadist organizations abroad. But it's all part of the same stripe, which is just this new raging leftist lunatic mentality. I think Barack Obama really fundamentally did transform the American left in many ways.
No, I think that's right. That's great. I just saw a video just a couple minutes ago before we came on of a woman or student at Princeton who's on a hunger strike. And she complained about how hungry she was, and she complained that she was immunocompromised because of her hunger strike. I was like, oh, that's the second person I've heard with these protesters use this immunocompromising. It's like, that is so weird. But it's like, oh, it's just another one. It's another notch on their marginalized people's belt. Now I'm woman, brown, Muslim, and immunocompromised all of a sudden, just because I haven't eaten lunch or maybe 2 meals even. What do you do when you're yelled at a college campus? Like, what's the right play for that?
Yeah, that Princeton headline reminds me of a similar, really funny headline that I saw. I think I saw this in the Harvard Crimson, the Harvard student newspaper. This is probably like 3 or 4 months ago, at some point after the Hamas pogrom of October 7th. And the headline in the Harvard Crimson was, students are doing a 12-hour hunger strike. Now, Mike, to me, a 12-hour hunger strike does not even fit the criteria of intermittent fasting, which I think means you have 4 hours to eat your meals, which I was basically doing personally for like 3 or 4 years. So, I mean, I guess I did a hunger strike basically every day under Harvard University students' own definition of it. But when you're being yelled at like that, I mean, again, I think back to when I was in that room in Michigan in November. There's actually video of this. Some guys got on video. I mean, I kept my cool. I did the best I could there. I tried initially to continue with my remarks, to just ignore the people in the room there. And then eventually, when it got really loud and I realized that no one could hear me, I kind of peeked off to the side to look at kind of the administrators and the campus police officers, like, are you guys going to do something here? I mean, you have pretty clear university policies that prohibit this exact conduct. The heckler's veto, which is, contrary to so much misinformation and confusion on this point, the heckler's veto is not only not a First Amendment right, it's actually a violation of the First Amendment, because you are actually depriving me of my right to free speech if you try to shut me down like that. They did absolutely nothing, which again I thought was absolutely shameful. But I thought that in that moment, Mike, when I was getting shouted down by this angry, frothing mob, there was no point in getting angry. I'm going to lose that fight. It's me versus 25. I mean, in that moment, either the administrators, the police are going to do something or they're not. It turns out they did nothing, and I at least got a good story and a good video out of it.
Yeah, was it Michigan or somewhere else where they were doing the same thing to some other speaker, and one of the administrators got up and like heckled the speaker as well, and like gave a speech like criticizing the speaker for what a horrible person he was. Or like the guy was like, "What in the world? Like, you're the one who's supposed to quiet them down." We're asking all of our guests this question. Josh Huddy got called into the radio show the other day. Genuinely needed advice for his high school senior son. Should he go into college and get a degree in marine biology? He said he has a passion for the ocean. Or should they go the way of trade school and become a welder? What is your advice for this family?
I think the answer has to be welder, Mike. I mean, what we're seeing, not just given the woke mind virus, which has really turned university students, university faculty's minds into mush, but even broader than that, what we have seen in America over the past a long time now, I mean, 40, 50 years probably or so, we have seen kind of the full absorption of this mentality that going to get a 4-year degree, a Bachelor of Science, a Bachelor of Art, an undergraduate degree is something of a rite of passage. It is a necessary condition in order to advance into society. The problem is that given the federal government's monopoly over student loans, the fact that student loans and tuition are working in tandem and inflation is exacerbating all of it, so many students are now graduating in grievous debt and oftentimes majoring in subjects that do not necessarily easily lend themselves to fulsome employment. Now, marine biology is probably slightly better than like lesbian dance theory or something crazy woke like that or whatever. But marine biology also, you're looking at probably fairly limited career options right there. And do you really want to go expose yourself to 4 years of absolute lunatics on campus? Given where the economy is currently at, given the paucity and scarcity of good working class jobs right now, I would encourage people who are in this situation to go to a technical training school, learn a profession like welding, plumbing, electrician, something like that. That is a steady, reliable, safe way to make an income. And then you will get married, God willing, you will have children, you will have a reliable family who can depend on you.
Yeah, not everyone could be a dolphin trainer. Also, I think like our true rite of passage is take these two pieces of metal and put them together with fire. Like that to me is something that real men should engage in more so than marine biology, perhaps. Josh Hammer, the podcast is America on Trial, all about the court cases with Donald Trump. Josh, appreciate you, brother.
Anytime. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Have a great day. Coming up next, Dave Bratt from Liberty University. Mike Slater, The First TV. Spread the word. Hey, welcome back to our special campus collapse. So a lot of universities have just canceled their commencements because of all the pro-Hamas, pro-Palestine stuff going on. Columbia was one of those schools, but gosh, maybe canceled is better than what they did a couple of years ago.
I promise to self-reflect diligently, to confront unconscious prejudices, and to develop the skills, knowledge, and character necessary to engender an inclusive, equitable field of medicine. Let us bow our heads in recognition of the gravity of this oath. We swear to faithfully engage with these ideals and obligations for the ongoing betterment of medicine and humanity. It is now my honor to present the class of 2025. Please turn around to your families and friends.
If I remember correctly, Columbia University, they write their own Hippocratic oaths as well. They try to improve upon what was written thousands of years ago with their new diversity, equity, and inclusion framework. Dave Bratt, Senior Vice President of Business Relations at Liberty University and former Congressman. Dave, how you doing, sir?
Hey, great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, good job to you. What's Liberty been like during all these pro-Hamas protests lately?
Better than that, that little clip you had there, that looked like a church service and the formation of the Nicene Creed with a prayer at the end to, the goddess of humanity or something like. And that begs the question, since Socrates in the beginning of Western Civ, what is humanity? That is the great question for education since the beginning of the liberal arts tradition. And they're bowing and kowtowing. They're doing everything except asking questions and educating their kids in that grand tradition, which has been grand until about the last 50 years.
What happened? What happened 50 years ago? Why the breakdown?
Yeah, well, I can go back even further. Harvard, John Harvard left Oxford, which was a great Christian school, in Cambridge in England, came over here, founded Harvard in 1640. The mission of Harvard was truth for Christ and church. Let that sink in for a minute, right? And that was good for a few hundred years. All the schools, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, all the publics were training clergy, had all Christian boards. That changed about 1850. There's a good book called The Soul of the American University by Marsden, Notre Dame Press, and he just does a quick overview, but the subtitle says it all, like from the Soul of the American University, from Protestant establishment to established unbelief. And so kind of 1850 or so, and that kind of goes along with the Enlightenment, right? The end of the Enlightenment, and no longer human reason, right? Back the Greeks, but now there's a narrow band of rationality. And that's what happened. And so the sciences kind of won the day, but the sciences are great, except in dealing with anything that has to do with human beings, right? The sciences are awful, right? In philosophy or ethics, there is no scientific ethics or philosophy, et cetera. And so the wheels fell off. They tried to get rid of God, but in doing so, they got rid of science, right? Because have you ever seen God? That was their argument. So there goes that. But have you ever seen a science? Uh-oh. And I'm if you want to go get serious, you read on the logical positivists and Bertrand Russell and Popper and all all the great philosophers back then. But the wheels fell off, and nothing has replaced it. And that has led us to today, where it's just a war of all against all, and the Marxists are winning because they're so good at the rhetorical battle. And the Christians, the Judeo-Christian tradition, have turned into a bunch of sheep who believe in turning the other cheek. And that's good in some realms, but not always. Not when you give away the universities and lose your soul.
Yeah, it's amazing what the universities used to be and all the Ivy League schools, what they started off as.
Yeah.
And they left. We abandoned ship, and the Marxists swept right in and filled that vacuum like they do. So no question. So what one of the good things that's come out of all this campus craziness, it's another opportunity to look around and be like, wow, there's other options out there. There are schools that do it the way it used to be done, and we need to lift those up and celebrate those. So you are at one of those schools. So how is Liberty University doing it the way it used to be done?
Well, we stuck to our knitting. I mean, just take Harvard's motto, truth for Christ and church. So we're a university, right? We're not a church, but we pursue the truth. And we still have required Bible, theology, worldview courses at Liberty, as well as the liberal arts, the left-hand side of your course requirements. Then your junior and senior year, you choose your major and you put it all together, and it all coheres, right? So what's missing from the world is systematic thought. Philosophy, the queen of the sciences for the last 2,500 years, and theology always were responsible for systematic thinking. Now you just do these narrow specialist kind of things and training, and you hope you're skilled up and you can make some money, and that's about the end of the conversation.
So one of the theses of our special today is that college used to be good, and then it became kind of a waste of time, just like delayed adulthood or something, delayed childhood. And then it became like a very expensive waste of time, and now maybe bad. So I think we're kind of in that realm now. But Liberty has kept a lot of the fun stuff for college. Like when college was just fun, but it was $100 a semester, and maybe like your parking pass was more than the tuition. Like you could still like justify maybe 4 more years of not being an adult. But like Liberty does all that stuff, but then also still has like a football team. So like what is all that stuff with the college experience?
Yeah, well, roughly speaking, I think your characterization is right when you're just referring to the general public schools, right? Parents are really starting, with COVID, they started seeing K-12. They looked under the hood. And now at the, like you were talking at the beginning, some of these students just create their own creeds. Brown University, you choose your entire curriculum, the courses you want to take. And now these leftist courses, right, they're just, radical Marxist study of every gender of the sun, cultures, et cetera. When the great cultural studies, University of Chicago, about 100 years ago, they sent the anthropologists out into the world, and they were liberal back then. They weren't Marxists, but the liberals came back kind of horrified, right? They were searching for cultures that would be superior to ours, and shocker, they didn't find any. The education used to be good. We were pursuing truth, and you don't always find what you think you're going to find. Now parents are starting to get skeptical of why they're paying big bucks. Liberty's about a third of the price tag, by the way, if parents want to take a look at Liberty University. But on the other hand, I will stick up for the liberal arts education. Everybody today mentions the term good. Well, that was the dialogue between Plato and Aristotle and Socrates, and it's lasted 2,400 years. The answer to that is no simple thing. What is good? Today in K to 12, the good is doing things that are good. It's a circular argument. It has no meaning. It's like, why is it that a human being is worthwhile? Right? The Judeo-Christian response is because we're made, all of us, in the image of God. The left, under Kant, who's one of the greatest philosophers, said, we're valuable because we do the valuing. But that's kind of weak. That's what sustains the grand vision of humanity and its meaning. I don't know. I don't think so. And so we got to get back to the big questions. What is the meaning of science? Why are you on the earth? What's your purpose? Philosophy and theology should guide you. That'll help the young people choose their vocations and motivate them for their studies, right? That they're doing something great for humanity and the kingdom of God in the Christian tradition.
Got a question for you. If you can help out one of our audience members.
Good.
They called into the radio show, and they're like genuine, like, we don't know what to do.
Yep.
We're trying to figure this out as a family. Should my high school senior son go to school, become a marine biologist, or go to welding school and go that track instead? What would your advice be as vice president of business relations at a university? What's your advice to him?
Yeah, well, it's good they're asking the questions. I hope they're asking them early enough. But my answer to all of our students is go do an internship in both of them, right? My goal was to work at the top of a shiny building. Bad goal. It turned out I achieved the goal, right? And then I went to seminary because I didn't like it. And I was much happier doing that. And so, I worked for Arthur Andersen in downtown Detroit and Chicago, and then went to Princeton Seminary, and then did a PhD in economics. And so you've got to go make your best guess what you're passionate about, what you like reading, the movies you like seeing, all that kind of thing. And then but go do an internship, even if it's just a day. Ask your folks if they got a friend in church or a community group where you can just shadow one of their people for a day or two. And either you may conclude, hey, this is me, I love it, or you may conclude, boy, I had no idea what this field was really about. And so I think that's the most valuable thing, is just get boots on the ground immediately in what you think is your passion and see if you love it.
Great advice. Dave Bratt, Senior Vice President, Business Relations, Liberty University. Hopefully Liberty gets a big boost of excitement and attention throughout all this, Dave.
Yep. Thank you very much for putting the microscope on education. Very needed. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Great to talk to you. Appreciate it, Dave. We'll do it again. Coming up next, we'll talk more about the trade school and what does that look like exactly? And is that a wise decision for more people to be moving in? We'll do that next right here on the First TV. Spread the word. Welcome back to our special Campus Collapse. We'll wrap up talking more about the trade school option. And so I'm grateful for all this campus craziness that's been going on recently. Hopefully it's revealed to people that there are other options out there. You don't have to do this one path that's been pushed on us by guidance counselors for the last few decades. Jonathan Butcher is here, Senior Research Fellow in Education Policy at the Heritage Foundation. Jonathan, how are you, sir?
Thank you. It's great to be with you.
Good to talk to you. So I want to ask you the question we've asked all of our guests. And that is, someone called into my radio show and asked if their high school senior son, they're struggling about whether he should go to college and study marine biology or go to become a welder. What would your advice be to this family and how they should think through this problem?
Well, for one, they need to recognize that too many students are just being pushed into college, regardless of what their interests are and regardless of how well they're prepared in a K-12 environment. So I think you need to look at your child's interests to begin with, but then you need to look at whether or not the school that they have attended has really prepared them to be successful in a 4-year bachelor degree path. Not every school is preparing kids for that. And I think it's very reasonable for students to look at either 2-year degrees or a trade school or a vocational school if that is both where their interest lies and it's where that they see that their preparation is going to be the best fit.
Where do you trace back the cultural roots of you have to go to college? if you want to be somebody, if you want to do something, if like you have to get your 4-year degree. When did that happen?
Well, I mean, clearly we want education to be the ladder for success, right? We all want that. We all want for our kids to be able to attain something, right, that will both help to give their life meaning and give them a purpose in their communities, okay? We've long felt that college would be that next step after high school. I mean, everything from the GI Bill dating back to the 1960s when Lyndon Johnson created his Great Society programs, there was this assumption, right, that if you moved on to college, that automatically then you would have better opportunities in the workforce. That's changed today, right? That's just not true anymore, that you have to go to college in order to earn a livelihood that's going to be able to provide for you and your family. There are a number of great skills out there that frankly we don't have enough people with the skills to fill the marketplace. So whether that is electronics, whether that is plumbing, whether that is working in either landscape design or actually doing hardscape work. These are things that students can learn a skill that can be immediately applied. And you don't have to go to a 4-year school to learn those skills. The difficulty becomes when students do go to college and they decide that they don't want to pursue something that they studied in college. Often they're saddled with debt, right? And they have to carry that debt for many, many years, sometimes into their 40s, before they can pay that off. I think that the Biden administration's proposals to shift college loan debt onto taxpayers is completely unfair, and I think it's exactly the wrong way to handle this problem. I think we need to better equip students in K-12 for what their next steps are going to be, and it's not fair to ask taxpayers to pay for students to earn degrees or attend college and not earn degrees, and then not pursue whatever it was they studied while they were in a 4-year school. It is at its roots a K-12 issue.
Yeah, that's right. I'm curious your take on whether this is first and or more a cultural issue or a political issue to switch the script. There was a while there where it's like, oh, you didn't go to college? Wow, okay. What happened? Why not? And now it's almost if someone came at me with a college degree, I'd be like, why? Like, why did you waste your money on that? It was a really bad decision. That's like hurts. You know what I mean? Like that's a negative. It's a con on your application at a certain point. How do we change the perception of, oh, you didn't go to college?
Yeah, I think that thought is on the front edge, I think, of the cultural discussion. I do think it is in the minds of most parents that they feel like college is going to lead to success for their kids. And look, there are statistics that support the idea that if you go to college, again, depending on what degree you earn, that you are more likely to earn more money over the full duration of your life, your full career. I think that what parents need to recognize today is that paying $80,000 plus a year to send a child to an Ivy League school does not necessarily mean that that child is going to come out with the civic knowledge that they need to be a participating member of society, and that there are very good either state schools or honors colleges at state schools that can provide, right, a quality learning experience. And then even beyond that, if you have a child who in K-12 decided that the traditional educational path of moving from the high school degree to the college degree is not for them, right? I think that message needs to be made clear. And I think that both policymakers as well as education leaders can say, look, you can earn a high quality salary and a meaningful career even if you don't attend college, right? There are places in the workplace, in the corporate world that we know now, in either the white collar or the blue collar world, where students will have a great opportunity. It doesn't have to involve college.
So obviously the federal government pays for a lot of student loans to go to the 4-year schools. Is there something that government does or could do more to promote? And I don't like government doing anything, right? But ideally we get government out of all of it. But to more promote the trade school route, like are there loans for that to give kids more of a hey, that's an option as well. You're not missing out on this 4-year option with free loans. Go this way instead.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust government with that. I mean, government only ratchets one way, and that's up. And so whatever they create either becomes bigger and then unwieldy and more expensive for the taxpayer. I think that corporate America should be more involved in providing those same scholarships that you were talking about right there. And actually, it's not uncommon, for example, in the world of flight, for people that train to be pilots, where they can get scholarships to go off to college in this case, but the same thing could be said for corporations or businesses that are looking to hire trained individuals or train them on the job. I think businesses can invest in that, right? They should be looking at our K-12 schools and looking for good candidates to then move into their area of the workplace.
That's right. That needs to be the answer. Jonathan Butcher, Senior Research Fellow in Education Policy at the Heritage Foundation. Jonathan, great to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I want to wrap up with a bit of a biblical perspective note here. Our podcast is called Politics by Faith, where we look at the things going on in the world through a biblical lens. I asked a lot of parents with older kids how their kids kept their souls throughout college. How did you do that? Right? I mean, my oldest is 7, but it'll be over before we know it. They'll be in college and then through college, and then it's like, geez, how'd it go? Do you still believe in God? What's your advice, parents who have done it before? And I think the best I've gotten is you just got to do the best you can to root your kids in the truth as much as possible for as long as you have them, because you don't have them for a long time. And then you got to live it yourself. If kids see hypocrisy, then they'll gravitate more towards what they see as the authentic people on campus, the cool communist professor, right? They're real. Because my parents were Christians, but they were a bunch of hypocrites. So we Christian parents, we got to be authentic, got to live it. We have to be vulnerable, admit when we make mistakes, but live the values that we want our kids to have. I think it's the only way they have a chance, no matter where they go to school. And maybe you can go to that crazy school and be a light in darkness. This is an opportunity also. I mean, listen, I'd be happy if my kids didn't go to college. Right? But if they wanted to go into this darkness and be a light in it, that'd be great too, if they're ready for it. Proverbs 22:6 says, train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he's old, he will not depart from it. The Hebrew word that we use for train up, it's also translated dedicate, as in dedicate your child to God. That's the way he should go. And then the rest, the school, the major, the profession, that doesn't matter at all. And they can also, again, be a light in that darkness. What a great opportunity this is for all of us. Mike Slater, The First TV. Spread the word.